Denzel Washington is back on the big screen in the newest installment in the Equalizer series, and I gotta tell you, this might be the best one in the series. Let's get to the review. Hey, what's up, guys? It is Brad from letsbreelwithb. I talk about movies, TV shows, and other movie-related content. So if that is something that you guys like, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and also leave a like on this video. It surely helps. I wasn't really excited to check this one out because I wasn't a massive fan of the first two Equalizer films, as I found them to be a very average movie series with it trying to be an updated feel of the 1980s Equalizer television series, and that is all great, but I found both movies to be really boring and slow-paced, and also just way too long for a movie that is not really all that deep. So I thought those movies are just okay, especially on my rewatches. I just didn't really enjoy them as I first saw them back when they came out. So going into the third installment, I had less hopes for it because, as you guys know, the third movie in an action movie series doesn't always hold well. So now saying this, I actually thought this movie was a little bit better than the other two. One of the biggest differences in this movie compared to the first two is that this movie has a darker and more mature feel to the film. Whereas in the first two movies, it feels as though that Denzel's character, Robert McCall, just feels like your everyday superhero. And I get that's what people really enjoy about that series, but I found it to get really old and boring, and to the point where it felt like he couldn't even be touched or anything bad could happen to him. But now we head into the third installment, and I found this movie just to be way more interesting and personal with this character of Robert McCall, where he is now in Italy and he finally finds his people that he enjoys, and there's these, crime boss people that are trying to take over. I mean, we have seen this type of movie before, but what I really liked about this one in particular is that we have Robert McCall going someplace that he is not too familiar with, where he has to learn the language, learn the culture, learn the people. So let's just dive right to my positives first, and I do have to start with, guess what, Denzel Washington. This man is a true artist of his craft of filmmaking and being an actor, and it doesn't matter what movie he is in, even if it is a paycheck movie, Denzel Washington always puts 100% into his character, and he does it once again. I truly feel that these movies wouldn't be big as they are without Denzel Washington, and even so, he is a producer on this movie, so you can tell that Denzel is the main focal point of this series, and he truly carries it. Easily the biggest upgrade from the previous two films have got to be the action sequences in terms of how they're presented and the intensity and the emotion behind it, because I felt that the first two movies didn't have a lot of great action, where it was your very typical standard action movie, and the first one had a lot of choppy editing, and you can tell that Denzel's not doing a lot of the action, and especially when John Wick came out the exact same year and had a very similar story to that movie, it just made the Equalizer just not as interesting. But the action was definitely improved in this film, especially the opening action sequence, which was fantastic. It reminded me of like a video game in terms of its presentation, but in a really good and cinematic way that was very brutal and violent and just so creative and shot well. There was so much planning and creativity that came with that opening action sequence, and that does play along throughout the rest of the movie. The other big improvement from the previous two films is that this movie clocks in around an hour and 49 minutes, where the other films clocked in around 2 hours and 10 minutes or so, and it definitely makes a big difference in this one, where this movie flows by so much faster, it's more straightforward, and in some ways ways it is not as interesting because it is your standard action movie, but it helps in a movie like this where it's not trying to be overly complicated. I also forgot to mention that one of the other best aspects about this film has got to be the score, as I really enjoyed how amazing it was in this movie and how it was used, and it felt very grand and epic and just a very like sinister thriller kind of movie, and it's definitely the best score in the series. Unfortunately, I do have quite a few criticisms with this film, and I do have to start with how formulated this movie is. And I get it, a lot of action movies are, any genre movie pretty much is, but in this film in particular, I found it to be very formulaic and very just tropey and things that we have already seen before. I also found some of the dialogue in this movie to be still sort of cheesy, especially on the second time where I was really looking for the cheese, and it was there, but not as bad as those previous two movies. I mean, those movies are so ridiculously cheesy. And one of my final criticisms with this film is with the performance of Dakota Fanning, who I do think is a very talented actress, and she has been in so many great projects, and she has performed very well in those movies, but I just didn't think she was very good in this role, as I found her performance to be very, very distracting. Overall, The Equalizer 3 is another standard action movie that has a stronger and tighter pace than the previous two films. The action is definitely presented in a more interesting and brutal and violent way. Denzel Washington is excellent as always, and if you're a fan of this series, then you're definitely gonna go watch this movie already. And if you're not the biggest fan, then definitely just go check it out. I mean, there are so many movies that are being moved because of the writers and actor strike that is going on currently at the time of recording this video, so you might as well just go see a movie before we don't get a lot of new releases in theaters in the next few months. So yeah, it's okay. I am giving The Equalizer 3 a 5, maybe 6 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for checking out this review, as I want to know below in the comment section, have you seen The Equalizer 3, and are you planning on checking this movie out, and where would you rank it among the other Equalizer films? I can't wait to hear all about it. And as always, I will see you all in the following video.